people, the most silly question I'm asked in the media all the time for 40 years is, don't you have bad days? Don't you get upset? Don't these things happen? Well, of course, but I said I don't stay there. I've trained myself like an athlete trains their muscles. I've trained my emotional muscles, which, by the way, I think your emotional, spiritual muscles are the most important ones. Courage unused, does it grow or shrink? Which one? Faith unemployed, unused, does it grow or diminish? Diminishes. Passion unexpressed, does it expand or shrink? So the most important muscles that change your life are those mental, emotional, spiritual muscles. If we develop them more, we're going to experience more. So the way I do that is through a process I call priming. And this is the part that I really want you to get because it's really simple. Most of us, have you ever seen someone do something and thought to yourself, what the F is wrong with this idiot? Who's ever had that thought? How many of you ever done something yourself and thought, what the F am I doing? Okay? Many times we think we're thinking our own thoughts when we're not. We've been primed by the environment to think a certain way and we don't even realize it. Now, sometimes that's done consciously by marketers or advertisers. That's a simplistic example. But a more powerful example is what happens in your daily life. So let me give you a couple examples so you become aware of the power of priming, and then I want to show you how you can consciously prime your own mind and body and emotion so you naturally go where you want to go as opposed to hoping you go there. So some of the studies on priming have shown that what you think are your thoughts actually got there because something in the environment that you're no longer noticing. So an example of this would be, they did a study, and they took 2 actors, and they both approached 100 people each, and the actors were designed to do the exact same thing. They walk up to people, they have the same facial expression, and they'd say, well, you're sitting there, excuse me, could you hold this for me for 1 second while I grab my phone? And they hand you this cup of coffee. And then they reach in their pocket to get their phone for 2 seconds, they put it back real fast, they go, thank you so much, and they take it back. And every time they did it exactly the same way with all the people, 200 people, 100 each. Each person did 100 people, but 50 of those people they gave hot coffee to. 50 of the people they gave iced coffee to. Now listen to this. This is mind-boggling. After 35 to 45 minutes roughly, a person walks by outdoors or at the mall, wherever they did this. They have a checkboard, clipboard, and they go, excuse me, we'll give you $20 if you'll give us 3 minutes of your time to read these 3 paragraphs and answer 2 questions. 95% of people do it. $20, 3 minutes, I'll do it. And they read these 3 paragraphs, which is this story about this main protagonist. And then the 2 questions are, tell us what's the first emotion that you link to the main character, and what's the second one? Those are the 2 questions. When they do this with people they handed hot coffee to, 80% of the people, 81% to be exact, roughly 80, 81, say that the person they read the story about is generous and warm. Sometimes they add the word loving, but generous and warm is always there. The people who had the exact same presentation 34 or 40 minutes earlier who were given iced coffee, 80%, there's a 1% difference, which is statistically irrelevant, 80% of them say the person is cold and uncaring. And the only difference is 35 or 40 minutes earlier, somebody handed you a hot or cold cup of coffee. That's wild, isn't it? I'll give you another example. In America, many of you, there's 72 countries here, but in America, a lot of people see individuals that come from Asia as being superior in science and math. And there's a different mindset in those countries about science and math. And when those people come here, they work incredibly hard, they're incredibly focused, they believe, and the belief structure is they do really well if you're Asian. Now, in our culture, in the past, many times people have been focused on the fact that if you are a man, you do well with math and science, but if you're a woman, it's just not your cup of tea, you're not quite as strong in it. And there's no basis for that whatsoever, but it's a cultural anchor that people have begun to believe in. So here's what's interesting. They took the math part of the SAT test, and they took a group of women at Harvard, and all they did to change the test is change the first question of the test. On half the test, they said, what's your gender? On the other half the test, they said, what is your nationality? right? What's your ethnicity? Well, interesting. When they're asked what their sex was, and they're all women, they performed 11% lower. And if they were asked, what is your ethnicity, and they said Asian, they were 11% higher, a 22% difference between the two. And the only difference was the first question that was asked. Because it primed you either for your higher level of skill based on your conditioning or a lower level of skill based on social conditioning. How many follow? Right? There's a million studies like this. Another interesting one that's really simple is they did an ad where they show the IBM logo and the Apple logo, and they also did this with the commercial. I don't know if you remember the commercial Think Differently that Apple made years ago. So that people watch the commercials. In both cases, afterwards, they were given a creativity test. The people that watched the 30-second Apple commercial versus IBM scored 20% higher consistently across the board, and all they saw was 30 seconds about thinking differently. That is the power of priming. So my point is really simple. If you're going to get the results that you deserve and that you want to prime yourself for success, prime yourself for love, prime yourself for courage, rather than hope that you show up that way based on the triggers of your environment. Does this make sense? And so I prime myself every single day for a minimum of 10 minutes. It's the first thing I do in the morning. And I'd like to show you how I do it and have you do it so you can have a daily discipline. And if you do this every day, if you keep once or twice a year, get yourself to an immersion experience that makes you grow. You get yourself a coach where twice a month, 30 minutes even, you're just staying on target and measuring. And you read 30 minutes a day or hear an audio 30 minutes a day, and you start with priming, then this won't be a 3, 6, 12-month thing. This will be a lifetime thing. Does that make sense? So you're not going to get a lifetime results unless you're lucky by one experience, but you can certainly have it if you use this as the blast off, and then you have a daily discipline to keep the momentum going. So how are we going to prime? Well, let me give you a story first, a simple example first with one of my boys. My second youngest son's name is Josh. I love him to death, amazing kid. And Josh came to live with me when he was 5 years old. Remember I told you I was 24, and instantly I got married to a woman I'd been married twice before with kids from 2 different husbands, and she wasn't living with her kids. And so I met her, fell in love with her, brought her into my life, and then saw how sad she was without her kids. So I brought her kids away from both the other husbands. They were happy to give them to us, and I adopted them as ours. And so I'm 24, and I got a 17-year-old son, because she was 13 years my senior, an 11-year-old daughter, a 5-year-old, and one on the way. Well, Josh was the 5-year-old. And Josh is just such a sweet, really incredibly great kid. But one of the challenges for Josh was he was afraid to even walk down the driveway to get to the bus. I'm Mr. Fear and the power rip shit open, and my son can't walk down to the bottom of the street. And so I had to kind of try to figure out how to deal with this, how to figure it all out, and figure out what I was going to do to try and make this thing happen, to make it change. And so one of the things that happened was I started to realize that I needed to train his nervous system to have courage. Instead of hoping it showed up, I got to really train it. And I started doing these things with him, and I watched him before my eyes change and become more confident, became more strong. And all it was doing was getting to program his own mind, prime himself. Just really simple little things to do. And then one day, Josh came home, and he was laughing uncontrollably, and like over nothing. And then I came in the room, and there was a new friend with him. And this kid, do you know anybody that's not really funny, but they think they are? I don't even know something like this. Somebody who cracks themselves up, you know what I mean? And this kid was cracking himself up. He wasn't funny, but he laughed so hard, I found myself laughing at his silly jokes, right? And Josh was laughing so much. So when he left, I said to Josh, that kid, he's your friend? I said, make him your friend for life. He goes, why, Dad? I said, because if you hang out with him, who you spend time with is who you become. And when you're around him, you're so much more playful. You just have so much more joy. You have so much laughter. And that young boy, my son is 36, and I have 3 grandkids with him, and his best friend is still that young boy who's now also 36 years old. And Josh is, and to this day, Josh is funny as shit. When he was a little kid, like 7 or 8 years old, he stole this dirty jokes book and memorized every freaking joke in the damn thing. And he got so much reward for it, and his buddy was like that. But to this day, if I want to laugh, Josh is my partner in a couple of my companies, and he's not my partner. I have 4 kids. None of my others are partners with me. I love them all equally, but he shows up differently. And part of it is things that stress other people out, he breaks the pattern with his own laughter. And it's beautiful to be around him. Great time. And he primed them. So I'll give you another example of priming. When I first started my Date with Destiny seminar decades ago, I did the seminar in my own house at a place called the Del Mar Castle. And there were about, 38, 39 people at the seminar. It's a little different now, as you can see. And I was delivering like my heart and soul into this particular program. And gradually I started looking around and going, man, I can't keep doing this in my house. There's not enough room. When we got to 100 people, I had to move it. But I wanted to keep it in the, I lived in Del Mar, California. It's on the beach. And I thought, well, there's a hotel on the beach. And it's a really nice hotel called Le Berge, and we'll go down Le Berge, we'll do it there. And they have a room that'll hold 150 people, which is a giant seminar for me at those days. And what I didn't count on, I thought, this is great. People work on their beliefs and their goals and their values, and they go outside and they can sit on the beach during the breaks, and breathe the fresh air. But what I didn't think about is right there in Del Mar on the beach, there's a train station. And so somehow my little brain didn't figure this out till it was too late. I'm in the middle of the seminar and someone is sharing this emotional experience. This woman was raped and she's going through it all, and I'm stepping in to help her, and all of a sudden and you hear this frickin' train whistle. And they do it like 5 times so nobody misses the train. And so every time I start talking, interrupted again, and people are getting pissed off. And it was happening so often because there's so many trains that at one point I realized I know the schedule when everybody will be pissed off. 8:30 a.m., 10:15, 11:30, 12:10, they're going to be pissed because the train's going to come. So I turned to the audience and I said, we kind of have a schedule for being pissed off right now, and I'd like us to train ourselves to feel differently. How many of you have something in your life or someone who can trigger you at times, annoy you? It could be a family member you love, but they have this little thing they do. It could be a husband or wife. It could be your kids. It could be a coworker. How many got one of these? Say, I said, what if we trained ourselves so the same stimulus that was making us angry, we trained our nervous system just using basic science, neuroscience, train our nervous system so the same stimulus makes us feel great. And people looked at me like, this is bullshit. What are you talking about? I said, here's what I want to do. Since the train's going to come 12 times a day and we have 3 more days together, perhaps we should enjoy the train. How many of you, when you were a kid, when you heard a train, you wanted to see the train and maybe count the number of cars or run down and be close to it? How many were excited when you saw a train? Raise your hand, say aye. Now you're on the way to work or a meeting and a train comes and it's in your way. Frickin' train! I'll give you a clue. The train didn't change, right? So the question is, I said, what if every time the train comes, we train ourselves to celebrate, to feel good, to enjoy? And I said, so here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Every time we are trained, I don't care if you're in the middle of the most important conversation of your life. I don't care if we're doing something what you think is so important. I don't care if you're tired. I don't care if all the books are on your chair. I want you to instantly just drop everything, and I want you to jump and start to celebrate like a little kid, like it's the greatest gift of your life. And then we're going to end with a whoa clap, and then we're going to laugh hysterically into our chair. And if you can't laugh, I want you to fake laugh into your chair. Because most of you know if you fake laugh, what starts to happen? Real laughter comes, right? And then you wire yourself to laugh more easily. Just like with Josh, I wanted people, wouldn't it be nice to laugh easier? You didn't have to have everything be perfectly funny for you to have a good time. Because most of you doesn't have to be perfectly bad for you to be pissed off. So train it. So I got everybody to agree, and we did it. So every time the train came, and some people are like, oh, a frickin' train, that won't work. You got to go, it's a train. You got to be like a little kid. And pretty soon, people look forward to the train. And by the way, would this be useful to train yourself around a person in your life or a situation, yes or no? So I don't have a train nearby, but I have imported a special train whistle, and I'm going to ask you for the rest of today, no matter how tired we are, no matter how hardworking, no matter what we're in the middle of, if we hear that train whistle, we're going to jump up and we're going to celebrate like little kids, make noise, have fun. We'll clap, we'll do the whoa clap, and then we're going to laugh hysterically into our chair and maybe point at somebody else and laugh at them while we're doing it to train our nervous system. Who's willing to go for it? Who's willing to go for it? Oh, yes! If that feels good, say yes! Say yes! Say yes! So that's priming. Can we prime ourselves to feel good? Yes or no? What if you knew you would have a really important conversation with your kid or your spouse or your loved one, and you're starting to feel a little tension because you don't want to deal with this because you love them, you don't want to deal with the bullshit, but you know you got to. In this state of being primed about it, how's it going to go? But if you primed yourself with laughter or joy or playfulness, and now you go to be with them, and somebody goes, no! And you go, that'll fuck with them real quick, won't it? They don't want to deal with you enjoying yourself. So we are in charge. Here's the point. Life changes the moment you make the decision that you're 100% responsible for your experience of life. Not responsible like a heavy, response-able. If you're responsible, you're able to respond. You can only respond and be able to do that if you own yourself. And if you know people can do anything, but still you're the authority of what it means to you. You're the authority of your own emotions. You're the authority of your own actions. Who's with me on this? Say I. And blaming other people, which the human mind is always looking to do, will never make you happy, never make you fulfilled, never bring you closer to people, will never make you grow. So when you're willing to take that level of responsibility where you're like making judgments and you go, oh, that person's such a bullshitter, such a liar. One of the things I always do is I do a reversal in my head and go, you're such a bullshitter, you're such a liar. No, I'm not. Where are you a bullshitter? Well, I did bullshit about that once. Who's ever said something and after you said it thought to yourself, what I just said was total bullshit? How many of you ever thought this? How many of you ever heard someone else say something and thought to yourself, what they just said is fucking bullshit? See, if you can see it in someone else, they can see it in you. Better to just own it and let go. Because that's what the mind does. If we let the mind run us, we're going to have a tough time. This mind serves me. I don't negotiate with it. Remember I told you? I don't say, well, I'll do this. Well, maybe we could do it. Maybe we'll jump in the water now. It's like, it knows I'm not here to negotiate. When I say it, we do it. That's what we want to train ourselves to do today. Who's up for that? Say I. So the first step to that would be priming. So let me show you exactly what I do for 10 minutes. By the way, my son, people have around him enough, he laughs so much, he is a priming to other people when he shows up in the room. Because they're around Josh enough, and they know at any moment Josh could crack them up. And there's an unconscious anticipation of it. Does that make sense? So even if something's stressful, they're almost on their edge that Josh is going to do something of this nature. It's an incredible skill. It's an incredible gift. So here's how I prime myself. I do 3 things. First, before I do the 3 things, whenever you want to make a change or improve something, the first place you want to improve it is in your mental, emotional state. If you do something from a pissed off state, from an exhausted state, from a frustrated state, from a weak state, it won't matter what you do. The thoughts are weak when you're in a weak place. The actions are weak. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you a simple breathing pattern. And the breathing pattern, if you're familiar with yoga, it's like breath of fire. It's similar to breath of fire. And it's a movement. And what it's going to look like is this. You're going to sit up in your chair with energy. I'll show you what we'll do, and then we'll do it. We're going to raise our hands up as we take the air in, and then you're going to blow it up. Only you're going to blow it out your nose. Now to do that, if there's anything in there, it may show up coming out of your body. So if it does, just wipe it on your neighbor. It's not a problem whatsoever. So if you do have some Kleenex, you might want to grab your Kleenex if you've got some, just in case something happens, because you're going to be blowing out that nose strong. In fact, if you have some tissue or a sleeve or something, now's the time to use it. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to take the breath in. Your hands are going to go where? Up. And then as your hands go up like this, and we're going to do that over and over again for 30 breaths. I'll count them. We'll do 3 sets of 10. You're going to do this with your eyes closed. Then you're going to drop your hands down, palms up on your weight, on your legs, and you're just going to feel whatever you feel. You might notice some tingling. You might notice a sense of peace. You might just feel relaxed. And then we'll do another 3 sets of 10, another 30. We'll relax, and then another. So we're going to do 3 sets of 30. 3 sets of 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 with a break between it. When you're done with that, you're ready to prime, because it puts you in state. Priming is 3 actions. It's done in 10 minutes. You can do more than 10, and many of you will enjoy it so much you'll go longer. But the reason I do 10 minutes of priming is I wanted to come up with a daily discipline there was no excuse not to do. If you don't have 10 fucking minutes for your life, you don't have a life. Who's with me on this? Say I. And by the way, when you get on the airplane, what's the first thing they teach you when you get on the airplane? They say, okay, here's how to put on your seatbelt, as if you don't know. And then they say, in the result of a loss of oxygen, what's going to happen? These masks are going to drop down, they have oxygen, and the first thing you do is grab it and put it on your child. It's the first thing you got to do. Is that what they tell you? What do they tell you? Put it on yourself, you selfish bastard. What are you talking about? Why do they tell you to do that? Because if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of them. And what a good metaphor for our lives. Yes, give it up for that piece of it. So we're priming taking care of ourselves so we can take care of everybody else too. Does that make sense? So what we're going to do is, we're going to do our 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 10. And with our eyes closed, the first 3 1/3 minutes of the 10 minutes is we're going to focus on 3 experiences in our life that we could feel deeply grateful for. 3 of them. And we're not going to think of like, oh, this. We're going to take them one at a time, spend about a minute each, and step into that moment in your life that you could feel grateful for. It could be a little thing or a big thing. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you go there. You know, if I asked you what's it like to be on a roller coaster, and you remember a time when you're on a roller coaster and you picture yourself on a roller coaster over there, you're going to give me a very different feedback than if I get you to imagine the moment you were going over the edge and you're in the front seat. Then you're going to show me a different result. You want your gratitude to be in the front seat, not an intellectual gratitude out there. So I take 3 minutes, a minute each. I come up with something different every time. I think of a moment that I could feel so grateful for, a blessed moment, a beautiful moment, a loving moment, a sacred moment. And I step in and feel it and flood myself with the gratitude. Now, do you remember why we use gratitude? Sounds corny, right? But why? From a scientific perspective. Remember what I showed you the other day. When someone's frustrated, when they're angry, we can measure your EKG and your EGG. We can see what your heart and your brain are both doing. And they are all over the place. They don't match. They're jagged. Do you remember the image? But when you breathe in your heart and you put focus in your heart, where focus goes, energy. And so what happens is you get unified. And all of a sudden the brain and the heart become one tracing energy. It's crazy. That's the flow state. So when you're grateful, gratitude is the antidote to the 2 emotions that mess up most people's lives. What are they? Anger and what? Fear. Those are the 2 biggies. You cannot be grateful and angry simultaneously. That's the beauty of it. It's the antidote to anger. You can't be fearful and grateful simultaneously. So the more you cultivate and prime yourself for gratitude, the more you can push through anger and fear very quickly. Does that make sense? So again, it's scientific. This is not like positive thinking bullshit. It's about what actually changes biochemistry and what will get you to wire and fire a new set of patterns that are more elegant, more rewarding, more impactful than the ones that society will condition you to do if you let it. Okay? So 3 minutes, a minute each. And by the way, when I do it, I usually pick 2 strong ones, and then I pick something really simple, and I make myself really feel the gratitude, like the wind on my face, or the smell of the ocean if I'm doing it outside by my house, or the look on one of my children's faces. And I'll just fill that up. And the reason is, if all you do is get grateful about big things, you're going to miss most of life. You know, the astronauts that went to the moon, think about that journey. Think about, as a child, these guys dreamed of being an astronaut. They competed with hundreds of thousands of people, and then a few of these guys get on that rocket and go to the moon. And imagine, you walk on the moon, you look back, and you see that picture we've all seen of the blue-green Earth that's so beautiful. And it's not a photograph. They were the ones there seeing it. Talk about an experience. And then they face their fears and come in, and they land successfully in the ocean, and they're rescued. And then there's a ticker tape parade in New York. They shake the president's hand, and now what do? You're 32 years old, and you walked on the fucking moon. What do you do now for adventure? And if you study the astronauts, Buzz Aldrin, and all these guys, I had a chance to interview most of them, not all, but 3 of them. Almost all of them wrote about, described what happened to them. They no longer had a compelling future. How do I have an adventure? I walked on the moon. Everything else is small by nature. And as a result, they got depressed. Most of them abused alcohol and drugs. Why? Because they're looking for adventure on a moon run, and they missed the adventure in a smile. So I train myself daily, prime myself to find those little things that are so beautiful and feel them, because the more I feel them, the more I can give that to someone else, the more I can move that direction, the more I can enjoy as well. It's putting the mask on me first. Who's with me on this? Say I. Okay? So that's, after we do our breathing, step one of the 3 steps, first the breathing, then the 3 steps. 1, gratitude. 3 minutes roughly, a minute each, 3 different moments you can feel grateful for. And feel it, enjoy it, savor it, live in it. Next 3 and a third minutes. Second piece we're going to do is you're going to feel the energy in you and do a prayer or a blessing. Now, I know many of you are not religious. I'm not suggesting you need to be. But almost all of us know there's a power in love. You know, if God was love, and we didn't come up with all the other names for God, you wouldn't have much argument between people. So imagine that what you're going to do is imagine energy of God, the universe, whatever you want to imagine, coming down into you like a white light and breathing it down in through your body, down your legs, into the earth, and then coming back up and out again. So it's, and then comes back up. And you don't have to do this with your hands, but I'm trying to show you what the feeling is. And while you're doing this, what you're going to do during those 3 minutes is you're going to give thanks. It's like a prayer saying, heal my body, my mind, my emotions, strengthen me, make me the best I can be, strengthen my love, my passion, my courage, whatever it is that you value in yourself. And you feel that happening. Of the 3 minutes, I do that for about a minute and a half, and the other minute and a half, I then take that energy through me, and I send it in a circle around to my children, to my family, to my friends, to my coworkers, to my associates, to my partners, to the people I meet on the street, to my clients. And so it's taking the energy in. Now, you might sound like woo-woo stuff, but the idea of allowing your nervous system to heal and strengthen, just the focus of that alone, for you is strong, and sending to others as well. So you can think it's all bullshit, but try it and decide based on the experience. If you do it a while, I think you're going to find it'll deepen that sense of gratitude, because it becomes not only gratitude, but a healing, a strengthening, and a gift to those you love. The last 3 minutes, I call 3 to thrive. You're going to think of 3 things that you really want to accomplish or achieve, but instead of like hoping it happens or thinking about it happening, you're going to step in your mind and experience it as if it's done. You're going to see it or feel it, breathe it, celebrate it like you've already achieved the goal. What you're doing is training your reticular activating system. And we talked about this the other day, the part of your brain that notices things. When you did, before you bought that car outfit, you never noticed them. Now you buy that car outfit, those cars and outfits are everywhere. How come? Because your RAS, now that you own one, says this is important. I need to pay attention to this. Well, when you get clear what you want, and you see this done and feel it and create it in your mind and your heart, and you celebrate it, there's a sense of certainty that enters your body, and your reticular activating system starts to go to work on making it happen. So you spend a minute each on those. So basically 3 minutes each, 3 1/3 minutes each, and we're done.